This is First Take. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you. Max Kellerman. Stephen A. Smith is in Pittsburgh. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Tired. How about you? Still ready to do it?
I have not slept all night, and I'm still wide awake, energized, and ready to go. Let's get it on.
Expect nothing less.
Running on fumes. Last night, Donald Trump was elected the 45th president of the United States. On the eve of the election, Donald Trump announced at a New Hampshire rally that Tom Brady was voting for him. Donald, I support you, you're my friend, and I voted for you. Brady, however, has not spoken publicly about his vote, but his wife, Gisele Bündchen, suggested on her Instagram page that the couple did not support the Republican nominee. Meanwhile, in early October, LeBron James officially endorsed Hillary Clinton on Sunday, just 2 days before the election. LeBron took his stance a step further, introducing the Democratic nominee at a rally in Cleveland. Stephen A., does this prove America relates more to Tom Brady?
Well, I think it serves as a form of evidence. There's no doubt in my mind about that. We all know, if we're looking at the election here, it's undeniable that you had a whole bunch of white folks who came out and voted for Donald Trump. Certainly, he did better in the black community than was anticipated. He did better in the Latino community that was anticipated, and he deserves a great deal of credit, because I'm here to tell you, Max Kellerman, I can't take anything away from him from the standpoint of how hard he worked during this campaign. Wherever Hillary and President Obama showed up, he was in some small town right in the neighborhood, campaigning himself. He worked tirelessly. He did a bevy of interviews. He worked the heck out of this campaign and clearly earned the victory. And we've got to give him his due respect for that. But as it pertains to the direct question involving Tom Brady is a white individual. America is made up approximately about 66% of white Americans. A white America that felt left out, that felt like the establishment had forgotten about them. They weren't just perturbed and completely turned off by the politics that existed in our nation's capital, but middle class and lower than middle class white individuals felt like a forgotten entity. So much was being focused on as it pertained to immigration, as it pertained to minorities, at least in their eyes. Not enough attention was being paid to as it pertained to the economy and national security, at least in their eyes. This was their perception. And so when you had a presidential candidate that talked about making America great again, I can tell you right now, as an African American, that means something entirely different to us than it may indeed appear to be to white individuals. It's black folks and beyond. It says, particularly any minority, whether it's black or Latino, it meant make America white again. That was the mentality that a lot of people outside of the white community had. But in the end, again, we can't sit up there and summarily think that, oh, it's just about the white vote that Donald Trump got. He got some black folks that were not expected to vote for him, voted for him. Some Latino folks, particularly the Cuban community, they were expected to give him some votes, and clearly they did. In the end, he won Florida. In the end, he won North Carolina. Despite the HB2 issue that they had going on down there, he won in a lot of places that he was not expected to win. He earned this victory. And so when you look at it from Tom Brady, LeBron James was not just a superstar athlete who also happens to be American, a black American, but he also happens to be somebody who was synonymous with President Obama because of his relationship with President Obama. And regardless of how anybody wants to slice it, a vast majority of Americans, in excess of 59 million people, and obviously compiling an electoral vote of over 280, they spoke adamantly against the Obama administration and against the liberal movement that they saw going on. And they said, no way in hell are we going for this. And that's what happened. And to me, that's synonymous with what Tom Brady and Bill Belichick emanated in supporting the candidate, which they have every right to do.
Brady and Belichick have both come out and said at various times that their support and congratulations to Trump has been personal, which is fine. Sure. That's how we treat our friends. Whatever you think of whatever else goes on, if your friend is doing something on a personal level, you're happy for them. Secondly, yes, a lot of people did vote, just to the politics of it briefly, against what you just mentioned in terms of Obama's legacy. Actually, more people voted for Hillary than for Donald Trump when last counted. She was leading by a little bit. in the popular vote.
No, I was just talking about the people who voted for Trump. That's
sure. That's not how. But as much as it's a popular repudiation of one idea, it's actually a greater affirmation of that idea when you count the popular vote. Of course, that's not the way we elect presidents in this country, and there's no challenge there. It's the Electoral College. And finally, before I get to the substance of Brady and LeBron, of course, now that a president has been elected, we all rally around that president. Whatever you thought before the election, you start with a clean slate and you hope for the best. It doesn't mean you support everything that previous candidate has supported in their campaign, but you hope for the best, and you hope the office appeals to their better angels and all that sort of thing. Of course, we are all Americans. Now, does this prove that, in spite of the popular vote, even had the popular vote gone to Trump, which when last counted it didn't, does this prove that somehow Americans relate to Brady as he represents Trump for them more than they relate to LeBron James as he represents Hillary, Obama? I think the answer is no, and let me tell you why. What this election showed was that even in spite of changing demographics in this country, white people still represent the largest voting bloc in the country if they respond to appeals to racial identity politics. If they respond to that appeal, white people, if they vote as a bloc, lockstep, are still the most powerful force in American politics and maybe the American economy, too, as this relates to sports, as they vote with their wallets, so to speak. But that's only if the multiracial coalition that twice elected Obama and very nearly elected Hillary Clinton, who would have been the first female president, who got very close, would have been the first female president in our country's history. I think that should be mentioned. When that multiracial coalition is inspired, as Obama was able to inspire them to an extent beyond which Hillary was able to inspire them, if they're inspired, that is, in fact, not the kind of white monolith that lockstep voting bloc who appeals to white identity politics, but the multiracial coalition, if inspired, is actually the strongest force in this country. And so if we want to somehow relate, which is unfair to Brady and LeBron in a sense, Brady to a white identity politics voting group and LeBron to the multiracial coalition, I would say that there's no one who is more kind of American than LeBron. He has been the most covered athlete since he came into the league, and that is because he is inspiring. If he were not an inspirational kind of athlete, then I think you would be right. And Brady has a more obvious appeal to that monolith I described. But LeBron is an inspirational athlete. He does inspire people. So I don't think Americans relate to anyone, if you want to say Americans, more than LeBron James.
Well, let me say this. First of all, I'm certainly not questioning in any way the inspirational commodity that LeBron James is. There's no denying that. He's the global iconic figure in the world of sports. He's number one. We get that. And he's an incredible role model and a great person. But when you talk about white identity politics, if there were ever an election where it was applicable, it would be this one. Sure. We can't negate that. We also have to pay attention to this fact, Max. Barack Obama garnered 69 million votes in 2008. In 2012, he got 65 million. Mitt Romney got about 60 million. He got about 65.6 million. Mitt Romney got about 60 million. Both Hillary and Donald Trump were hovering around 58. They're both at around 59 right now. Even though the votes are still being tabulated, chances are millions of voters did not show up to the polls, which is something we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the show as it pertains to Mr. Colin Kaepernick.
Yes, sir.
My point to you about that is that by virtue of the fact that those millions who showed up to vote one way or another in an election involving Obama and elected not to, as it pertained to Hillary Rodham Clinton, it was an inability to galvanize the troops per se.
Right. Now, what I mean is LeBron is not an uninspirational candidate, so to speak, to that multiracial coalition. He is inspirational.
But we weren't saying that. We were comparing the two because of the obvious element of white identity politics that have infiltrated this particular election. Sure. Nobody's trying to imply that LeBron isn't motivational or anything. You're just comparing the two in terms of what identifies.
No doubt about it. Along those lines, if you look at where the NFL is, and Tom Brady, as much as anyone, the face of the NFL right now, it's been in relative decline. The NBA actually has the wind at its back right now, and LeBron is the face of the NBA. The NBA is entering another golden age for the NBA, suggesting also that LeBron is resonating with Americans, you know?
No, what I'm saying is LeBron is going to resonate with Americans anytime he's playing because he's LeBron. What I'm saying is when you step away from sports and then you get into the man, the wonderful human being, the man, the role model, the father, the husband, and all the things in between that he is, what he has been synonymous with throughout the latter part of this election is his support for the left candidate because of his affection, affinity, and friendship with the current incumbent, which happens to be our President Barack Obama. So if you have a whole bunch of folks that are connected to white identity politics and they have a problem with what they've seen President Obama doing for whatever reason, regardless of whether we agree with them or disagree with them, what is undeniable is the fact that they were making the case that, Tom Brady, they relate to him more is all I'm trying to say, regardless of the numbers.
Fine, that's why I went to that's why I went to the popular vote, because yes, if what you mean is that Brady and his support of Trump, at least personally, has captured a moment in America right now where that kind of that white identity, that voting, that block of people identify that way and therefore identify with him and his candidate, if you want to call it that. Yes, there is something there where he's captured that. My point is simply the reason I pointed to the numbers is even then, LeBron's candidate carried the popular vote, and LeBron's sport is ascending right now, largely because of his presence and the amazing things that he's doing. So even in this moment where it seems like your point would be exactly right, I actually still disagree. I actually still don't think that America, as a country, identifies with anyone at this moment more than LeBron James.
It's important for us to end this segment by pointing this out. LeBron James, Tom Brady, we're debating the subject, but we're not condemning them in any way. Neither of them did anything.